Oh, wow. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for jumping on. Good morning. Welcome to Greater Life, Greater Impact. I'm so glad that you guys are here. This is going to be a great topic. I'm super excited to talk about it. Feel free to unmute your cameras and your mics if you'd like to chime in at any point in time. If you have something really, an amazing epiphany to share or a story to share that will help to add to our discussion, I would love that. I would appreciate that. So just a little bit of background before we actually jump in and get started. Welcome to, this is going to be a replay up on my YouTube channel, which is Greater Life, Greater Impact. We do these classes every Tuesday morning, so I'm really glad to see you guys all here this morning. I am a quantum healing practitioner. And also what I do is I do private mentoring, one-on-one mentoring, and I help people to retrieve and recover and restore the authenticity and the sovereignty of their spiritual identity, their soul. Oftentimes we don't know what that is. We get caught up in our brains too often, and we lose connection with the true authenticity of who we really are. And we forget that we have this divine identity about ourselves. So yes, those of you who are jumping on, some of you guys are new. If you're new, I'm just doing an introduction right now. My name is Janet. I'm a quantum healing practitioner. And what I do is I help take people to the uncharted waters of who they really are for healing and for transformation and for spiritual awakening. And this year we decided to focus our classes all on sovereignty. And a lot of you have been asking me, what does that even mean? What is sovereignty? And so for me personally, I believe that sovereignty, spiritual autonomy and sovereignty is really all about getting to the roots of who are you? Who is the being that's inhabiting this body, that's animating this body, that's looking through your eye holes, that's raising your arms, that's stepping you out into the world and into life? Who is that being? When you look in the mirror, oftentimes what you are witnessing is not really a true, honest reflection of who you really are on an infinite level, a divine level. And I don't believe that this is just potential. I believe that there is an aspects of you, your divine identity that are the same yesterday, today, and forever, just like God is. And so these are godly qualities, godly aspects of you. And so sometimes when we're first learning how to develop that part of ourselves, or I guess step into the conscious awareness of that part of us, it can be scary because often that part of our identity doesn't always align with what everybody else is doing or saying. And so that's terrifying to go against the grain, to feel alone. Do you guys ever have this? And type yes into the chat if you have this. As you have been on your awakening journey and you've been waking up to deeper levels of spirituality, maybe discovering deeper levels of who you are as an infinite, innate, eternal being, as you've started to have that, do you ever have people saying, you're crazy, you're nuts, you're deceived, you're gonna go to hell? I've had people say that to me. I'm really worried about your salvation because I think you're going to go to hell based on some of the things that you say or that you are teaching or that you're learning. So do you guys have that? I'm getting lots of yeses. Tammy, Nicole, Meryl, yes. Lots of people saying, yes, I have that too. Do you have people ever just tell you, I think you're off, I think you're deceived, I think you're wrong, I think you've missed the mark, I think you should do this instead, right? People projecting their fear onto you, their fear of losing their identity being projected onto you because you're going in a different direction or you're doing something more authentic to you, and that doesn't always align with what the rest of the people in the box are doing. And when I say that, I just mean people who are going along to get along, going with the flow, going with the group think. And if you start going against the group think, you'll notice that as you begin to get in contact with your higher self and discover this deeper, more authentic identity about yourself, you will notice that there will be resistance there. And so let me introduce the topic for today. The topic for today, we are talking all about how you can learn how to walk with confidence on the stormy ocean of self-doubt. How do we do that when so many people are trying to pull us back into the crab bucket so that we can be steamed with the rest of the bunch, right? How do we do that and stay confident when we look around and we're like, who else is on this path? Oh, nobody. I have no support. I feel all alone. I feel lost. People are saying I'm crazy. So, we got some great comments coming in. Meryl says the fear is keeping them in the hell. Yes, that's what hell is. It's an overabundance of fear. Katie says, oh yeah, legalism and religion, fear. Yes, sometimes fear can bubble up in all kinds of cultural groups. So wherever there is any kind of group think that starts to happen, it's not just about religion, but it's any kind of groups that start thinking together as a group. It's scary to separate from that group or to be more authentic from how that group is thinking or acting or believing. And but sometimes your heart and your soul and God are going to beckon you to go somewhere else. And that takes a tremendous amount of courage and confidence. So let's talk about sovereign confidence today. Before we jump into that, I want to share a song with you. And I would love for you to look at the lyrics. I'm going to go over, I'll do a screen share. I want you to really take a deep look at the lyrics, internalize this, think about what does this mean for you in your life as you are being called upon to stand alone in your own sovereignty and autonomy in confidence. How do you do that? So let me jump on over to YouTube here really quick. Where did it go? Here it is. Okay, well, there was that. Someone just said you couldn't hear it. So I am so sorry about that. Let me go back here. Sorry about that. Someone said can't hear the video sound. Darn. Same for me, video with no sound. That's too bad. Okay, what I'm going to do then for you guys, I will post the link to that song in the replay so that you can actually hear the song. It's an amazing song. So you got the lyrics at least anyways. But one of my most favorite songs in the whole world is this song, and it talks about stepping out onto the water. Bambi says, I love the song. Yes, it's a great song. You know, it's interesting. My husband and I were having this conversation not very long ago, talking about how staying in the boat. Lots of times you hear that in culture. When people are afraid of you stepping out into the unknown, breaking the rules or breaking the norms of culture or society or group mentality. And that can be scary. But think about what Christ did with Peter. He asked Peter to step out of the boat and onto the stormy water. Why did he do that? Why do you think he did that? Give me answers in the chat box if you dare. So as you guys are thinking about the answers to that question, why would God ask you to step out of the boat, to not go along to get along, to test his faith, for trust? Yeah, good answers. Thank you guys. To test his faith and to build and develop trust. You can't build and develop trust with God, or if Christ is your mentor, which he is mine, you can't develop that relationship of trust unless you're willing to step out into the unknown, where it does feel unsafe, where people are going to point at you and shame you and shun you and try to silence you. Somebody else, Tammy says, to learn that we have nothing to lose. Yeah, we really don't have anything to lose. There's no threat to an infinite being. Thanks for sharing that. So today, in talking about sovereign confidence, stepping out of the boat sometimes is terrifying, and it requires a huge leap of faith and trust. Elliot says, to show that this material world is more than we think at first sight. Yeah, good answers. Thanks, everybody. So I'm going to give you 6 ingredients for the recipe of sovereign confidence. Some of you guys might have additional things to add to the conversation or to this recipe. And so if you have other flavors to bring into the recipe, I encourage and invite you to share some of those ideas and thoughts. These are just mine. So again, I'm not your guru. I am not an expert in any of these topics. I am just sharing with you things that I've seen and observed and witnessed and learned for my own self. And so as I share that with you, it might be beneficial for you to share some of your learning with the rest of us. Okay, so in this recipe for sovereign confidence, to being willing and able to step out of the norm or step out of that safe place where you feel so safe. You know, oftentimes in church culture, we hear, follow your leaders, you'll be safe. Just do what they tell you to do. And if that's all you ever do, I mean, I'm not saying that that's bad, and I'm not saying that that's wrong. If what they're telling you to do is in alignment with you, and it is in alignment with God's highest will for you, then yeah, by all means, you should do that. But just to blindly and unequivocally follow somebody just out of blind obedience, I don't think is very healthy. I think that you owe it to yourselves to learn how God speaks to you and how God guides you and what your higher self is guiding you towards. So there's value in that, and the onus is on you to figure that out. So recipe ingredient number 1 is you got to come to know who you are. Who's in here? Who is the infinite being that is animating my body, that is creating these experiences that I'm having in my life that are mirroring and reflecting stuff back to me all the time? Who is it? That inner self, that inner knowing of the divine self, I think is, well, obviously it's the first ingredient. It's the most important ingredient, because if you don't have that, then all the other stuff that comes behind it, it doesn't matter. You might as well be a robot if you're just going to come to this earth in order to just follow everybody else's instructions. You got to learn how to be governed by your own free will, because that's what gods do. Gods are governed by their own free will. So if you're going to be governed by your own free will, you got to know what that is first, right? So standing firmly in your I am, standing firmly in the non-negotiable parts of yourself, right? So there are aspects of your identity that really are and should be non-negotiable with anybody else. Of course, we can be, what's the word, compatible with others. We can be agreeable to others at times in our lives, but there are aspects of you that should be unequivocal and non-negotiable, and you should stand resolute in that part of yourself, unapologetic for who you are and how you show up in the world. It doesn't mean you have to just run over people and say, deal with it, this is who I am. You don't have to be belligerent in it, but you better know who you are, and you better know what you believe and why you believe it. Okay, so it starts with the inner knowing of your highest self. How do you connect to that? There's lots of ways. In fact, if you've watched any of my other videos, oftentimes I'll take you through a guided meditation to help you learn how to tap into that. We're not going to do that today, but feel free to browse my YouTube channel and find meditations where you can connect with your higher self. Often when you're going about life and you're in alignment with your higher self, you'll notice that and those people, like beings that are in alignment with you, will connect with you. They'll attach themselves to you in some way. They'll show up in your life. So will things and situations and experiences. That which is in alignment will show up, and that which is not in alignment with you has a tendency to kind of just fall away. And that can be relationships and places where you live or work or whatever it might be. So just notice that. Who and what is in alignment will show up for you when you first show up for you and learn how to connect to yourself. And the other beautiful thing I think about connecting with your higher self is that when you learn how to truly go within and deeply connect with your higher, more divine identity, you're connected with the mind and will of God, because they're one. And you're connected with the mind and will of all beings that operate in the highest light, in the divine realm. Those who walk in the highest light of God, they're all in alignment because they're one. And so when you connect to that infinite, deeper, divine aspect of you, and you start stepping into that more as a true identity for yourself, now you're in alignment with the mind and will of God. And it's a beautiful place to live. It's a beautiful way to live your life. When you do that, what will ultimately start happening is that the world will adjust to meet you where you are. When you stand resolute in your confidence, unapologetic, and not negotiating those pieces of yourself. Now, does that mean you can't be flexible? No, it doesn't mean that at all. You can be bendable and flexible and compatible with other people, for sure. And that's going to take some compromise on some things, but there are certain things about you that aren't compromisable. And you need to know what that is. You need to learn how to tap into that. And that is what I do in my private one-on-one mentoring. If you need help with that, you can reach out to me, but that's the first step. There's a great movie. It's actually a documentary, but if you've ever seen I think it's called Free Solo. And I don't remember the name of the gentleman who free climbs the rock face at Yosemite National Park. It's a straight up vertical climb up this rock face, and he does it without any safety or belay equipment or ropes. He's free soloing it. And it took him years to develop the confidence to be able to do that. There are parts of that climb where he's free climbing. He literally could fall to his death at any second, but there are parts of that climb where literally just maybe a half an inch to an inch ledge is what his feet are clinging to, and his fingers. And he's like on the face of the mountain, spread out, right? Moving from one step to the next. Now, did he just do that one day? Did he decide to wake up? No, there was a lot of preparation that went into that, but I highly recommend this documentary if you want to go watch it. I think it's on Amazon Prime, but what I loved the most about it was, yes, free solo. His name is Alex Honnold. Yes, please go watch it. If you want to learn about sovereignty, watch him. Watch what he does in his life. Watch how he maneuvers. Like they did this documentary. They had to film him climbing this rock face, and he had to be totally zoned into what he was, so present with what he was doing. He couldn't worry about what the cameras were doing or what the people around him were doing. He couldn't worry about their schedules. Thanks for posting that, Mike. I really appreciate that. He had to be sovereign because his life, it is an epic documentary. Please watch it. I beg of you. If you want to learn, I learned so much about sovereignty by watching that video, because he had a girlfriend, you know, he's going through, he's playing this inner mental game, preparing for this. He knows he's driven, he's got to do it. His soul is pulling him to do it. He knows he has to overcome that mountain and accomplish this thing. And yet people have died doing what he does. They've fallen to their deaths and left behind a wife and children. And so his girlfriend was expressing her concerns over that. She didn't want him to do the climb. And she was a bit upset trying to voice her concerns. And she said, "Don't I get a say in any of this? Like, what if you die? Don't I get a say?" And he said, "No, you don't get a say in this. This is basically what he's telling her is, this is my soul's mission. This is my soul's path. I know it's dangerous. I came here to this planet to do this. Not just to inspire people, but because he knew it was a challenge inside of him that he had to overcome, that he wouldn't quit trying until he'd done it." That's sovereignty. That's standing resolute and confident in your sovereignty. You know who you are, you know what your job is, and the world just kind of like the people who were filming the documentary, they had no idea when he was actually going to go do the climb. They just had to kind of sit and observe him and watch him and communicate with him, you know, a little bit. But as he prepared, when he knew that he knew he was ready to do the climb, he got up early in the middle of the night and went and prepped himself and went and did the climb. And they had to meet him there. It wasn't him trying to adjust to cameramen's schedules. They had to, the world around him, because his life depended on him being able to do it in an intuitive way. His life was hanging in the balance. And so the world had to adjust where he walked. And I'm not saying that there's a fine line, right? That this is about boundaries. This is about sovereignty. This is about saying to the world, hey, this works for me. This doesn't work for me. This is what I'm willing to do. This is what I'm not willing to do. So I want you to look inside of your own life and look inside your own head or your body, your being. Where in your life are you completely confident in your sovereignty about, hey, this is not negotiable for me. This is my path. This is where I'm going. Nobody has the right to stand between me and this purpose or my mission. So think about that for just a minute. If you want to journal some of that out, I highly recommend it. So there's this fine line between meeting other people where they are, being present with them, showing up for them. That your life is not always just only about you. So while in this documentary Free Solo, the story really was all about Alex, right? But there are other aspects to his life where it's not always about him, where there is some give and take. There is some relatability in relationships where there's compromise. There is some of that has to, so there's this balance between those two aspects of boundaries. You've got to respect other people's boundaries, but you also deserve to respect your own and honor your own agency. Okay. So that second aspect, I think, is just about seeing people where they are without needing to fix them, without needing to change them, without overstepping your bounds onto people. It means having sympathy and empathy and compassion. And in order to do that for other people, I mean, this is all about boundaries as well. It's the other aspect of it. But in order to do that with people, you got to know what their boundaries are and honor those. So, but you got to be able to do that without losing yourself. And that's not always easy to do when we're in relationships, because sometimes we have a tendency to give in to get along and we lose ourselves in the process. And we don't want to do that. Okay, I think that's it. That's all I had on standing firmly in your I am. So that is recipe ingredient number 1. Recipe ingredient number 2 would be, once you have established the connection with yourself, you've established those boundaries, you know how to meet other people in their boundaries and honor that. The second step would be exercising your free will. So you got to choose. And what I mean by that, I'm going to share a little story with you. If you guys have any other instances or stories to share, then feel free. But so the second ingredient is choice, exercising agency. So one time I was in the process of just trying to communicate with God, trying to get direction, trying to get focus, trying to get clear in my life. Like I didn't really have direction. I was really struggling with finding meaning and purpose in my life, and just really struggling with all of it. Direction, meaning, purpose, drive. I was just kind of feeling blah, right? And not really moving anywhere. And then all of a sudden, the answer that came back to me in my prayer time was, Janet, you got to choose. You have to choose something. And I started, as I listened to that phrase that came into my mind from God, I felt like it made me flash through all the times in my life where, you know, we're going out to dinner and my husband says, where do you want to eat? I don't know. You pick. I don't care. Right? Like, what do you want to do today? I don't know. Whatever you want. Where do you want to go on our walk? I don't know. I don't care. Right? Like I realized that I did a lot of that. Giving in to get along, not creating waves. But in doing that, you kind of lose direction, you lose focus, and it can suck the living daylights out of you to the degree that now you have no purpose because there's no aim and no drive, no dreams, no passion, that starts with free will. That starts with making a choice. You got to choose. And so what the Lord put in front of me in that moment in the form of a vision was, Mike says, this is another epic documentary about finding your purpose and dreams. Oh, can't wait to watch that. Thanks for sharing. I'm going to take a screenshot of that and go copy it. But anyways, what the vision that I got of it was, I saw myself sitting on a bike, but the bicycle was stationary. And the Lord is like, Janet, you got to choose. So you have to be in motion. If choosing something, there has to be a direction that you're going. So choose what direction you want to go. Tell the world what you want. Tell the universe what you want. Tell people what you want. Tell God what you want. And say it. Speak it out. And then and then move in that direction, start pedaling the bike. And then God said, if you get on the damn bike and start pedaling it, I will guide it. I will help guide you, but I can't guide something that's just inert and stationary and not going anywhere, because there's no fixed point, because you haven't chosen anything and there's no momentum. You're not in motion. So that brings me into recipe ingredient number 3. There's 6 in total, so we're halfway there. Recipe ingredient number 3 is once you've made a choice, once you've fixed on a determined spot out there, something that you want to have or be or do, you've made that choice. Now you got to act. There has to be some action taken. That's what puts you in momentum, right? So you pick a direction and then you respond with action, and you follow that, your intuition, your hunches, the synchronicities. So as you start following intuitions and hunches, little slight hunches, like, I feel like I should do this. I feel like I should say that. I feel like I should go here. I feel like I should call them. Whatever the hunch is in your life, and you follow that, even as slight and faint as it possibly can be, and it's not going to be loud. It's a still small voice. But if you follow that and take action and follow that unequivocally, it's going to probably take it's going to take you being fiercely courageous in some aspect. Sometimes your heart's going to lead you to do things that will require bravery. So you have to be willing. You have to be willing to say, I'm never going to say no to my higher self. I'm never going to say no when God guides me. I'm never going to say no when I receive these little nudges and promptings. Because that's when life gets really good. That's how to play the game of life. So I do feel like, too, that that's the epitome of exercising faith. That's what exercising faith is. It's one thing to have faith. It's a whole different thing to exercise it. And when you exercise faith, what you're doing is you're stepping out into the unknown. You're stepping out by taking action, and you're setting things in motion for yourself. Anybody have comments or questions or remarks or ideas on that? So just to recap, number 1, you got to understand who you are. You got to know what you stand for. You have to know how you shine in the world and where to show up in the world. Oftentimes you can tell where you're supposed to shine because the things that you've overcome in your life, the challenges that you've had to conquer, the big demons that you've had to conquer in your life, usually that's where you're going to help others. Typically, that's how it works. So I'm here to overcome this problem. I'm here to remedy it, bring it to resolve, return myself to love, find meaning and purpose in it, and then share that gift of inspiration with others. My aunt Joan, wrote a book years ago of her life. She was bullied as a 5 or 6-year-old in school. She had just barely started school and was bullied so bad. It was so bad. I read the first 3 chapters of her book and I sobbed uncontrollably. It changed me. I had to call her after chapter 3. I was like, I can't even read anymore. This is breaking my heart. It's so sad. And she's like, keep reading. It's okay. Just keep reading. It's okay. She kept this. The book is called The Silence of the Secret. And she kept it a secret her whole life. She didn't want to share this story with her parents or with her children or anybody else years down the road because it's such a painful story. What happened to her being bullied on the playground at school. Like, you can't even imagine. The story is upsetting. And then I got to the end of the book and there was resolve and she overcame and she conquered the demons and she developed self-confidence finally after all these years of PTSD and anxiety and depression. And so the story ended really well. And I called her back up again. I said, Aunt Joan, you are a healer. You are healing souls. The fact that you shared this story and what you overcame and how you did it and how you got to the place you got to, amazing. It's an amazing story of overcoming and conquering. And she didn't do it alone. She did it through the guidance of God. And it's a beautiful story, epic story. So anyway, why did I tell you that? I think I told you that because the things that you're here to conquer and overcome are here to not just help you ascend and grow, but they're here to help inspire others to tap into their unique sovereignty, their confidence as well. My aunt's name. Yeah, her book. Let me see if I wonder if I can find it. I don't know if it's available. Hang on just a second. I know she has additional copies. This is the book. She grew up in a tiny little town called Tabor, Alberta. And I grew up in the same bedroom that she slept in as a little girl. So I have an amazing connection with her. But if you want a copy of the book, you're going to have to reach out to me. I know that she had several copies printed, but I have to get them through her family, her children. Anyways, that's a long story. But the point is, you are a healer in your own life. The things that you came here to overcome, the things that challenge you the most, the things that make you stronger are going to inspire other people and heal other people and set other people as they watch you on their own personal path and their own trajectory as they watch you and witness you overcoming hard stuff. So that's what I meant by saying, you're a healer. And she said, I am. She's always been so ashamed of her story because it was so heart-wrenching and hard to tell. Even her kids didn't even know this story until it came out in the book form. But it changed me when I read it and realized the human spirit is all about overcoming. And that's how we stand in confidence in our own sovereignty. Okay, so that is recipe ingredient number 3. Recipe ingredient number 4. Let's go there. How could I word this? I think this ingredient would be worded, take ownership. So now that you've learned to tap into your higher self, you know there are aspects of you that are not negotiable, and you can't apologize for that part of you. And you're strong in that now because you're starting to understand you better. Then you're making choices. You're going in the direction that your heart is pulling you and guiding you. And you're responding to those things by responding with action. So you're creating momentum in your life now. And that momentum is helping you to inspire others. You're taking action, you're overcoming, you're doing the things. Where is your heart guiding you to go? Then the fourth step really in this is taking ownership, being fiercely brave about accepting full and complete responsibility for who you are. I have a very good friend of mine who has some, how do I word this? I don't know how to word it. Some challenges, some struggles with personality. And they end up conflicting with other people around them. And so it ends up making others very uncomfortable because they haven't established good, healthy boundaries in their life. All they see is themselves. And as a result of that, they're not willing to really go inside and do the inner work, to humble themselves and do their own inner work. Because staring down those demons of the pains of the past, all the drama and the trauma that they've been through, staring down those demons is terrifying. It's terrifying. There's too much terror in there. So I'm going to keep acting like this on autopilot because it's what I know. It's what I've been conditioned to do. It's my reactionary state. And as a result, all these people around me, you know, this person, all these people around them are saying, hey, you're overstepping your bounds. You're harming other people, and they don't mean to do it, but it's happening because that person has not gone in and done their own inner work to resolve their own inner demons. And as a result, they're hurting people in their life because they're acting on autopilot, unconscious. They don't have the capability of seeing other people and what those boundaries look like. And so they're constantly stepping on people's boundaries and messing up and ruining relationships. So that's what I mean by that, is you've got to take ownership you have to own your own crap. What is the gunk that's inside of you that's gunking up your system? Shauna says, what would you say depression and anxiety are? One is fear. Anxiety is fear because of the pains of the past. And you fear the future because of the pains of the past. So you're not being present. That's why people have anxiety. Is they're not being in the present moment now. If you go to the present moment now and you get into your body, the anxiety goes away. Depression is a little bit different. Depression is not knowing who you are. You don't know how to connect with yourself, and so you feel very isolated and alone and despondent and empty and blah. Like the fire is out in the fireplace. It's just cold. So that's depression. There are so many people suffering from it, and I feel so strongly that drugs are not needed. Yes, drugs really are not needed. Drugs are, I'm not going to say that. You know what? Sometimes a medication can be helpful in just helping you get over a hurdle or helping you get to the next step, but it's not a long-term fix, in my opinion. So I'm not going to rule it out. I'm not going to say they're not useful, because I know people who have benefited from using medicines, but there are obviously better ones than others to use. And we're not going to go into that, but anxiety and depression. Fear, it's fear. Anxiety is fear. Depression is not knowing who you are, and also not being in the present moment now. When you learn how to connect with who you are and you're in the present moment now, and you can stay in the infinite eternal now, those symptoms will weed themselves out of your life. They'll go away. They really honestly will, I promise. It's not who you are. And yes, many people have anxiety and depression. Why? Because there's so much fear on this planet. Look at all the systems that dictate to you. They're dictating to you based on fear. They want you to be afraid that you're going to lose something. You're either going to lose your job. You're either going to lose your health. You're either going to lose your salvation, right? There's a lot of that goes around. People shaming other people because they're afraid, oh, you're going to go to hell if you do that. Right? So that's fear. And so that does create a tremendous amount of anxiety. So the remedy is learn to connect with yourself. Learn to connect with the divine aspects of yourself and stand confidently in that. Taking ownership. This is, step 4. Taking ownership means you accept full and complete responsibility for what's going on in here. What's happening inside of me? Is it depression? Is it anxiety? It doesn't matter. You're ultimately responsible for what you're going to do about it. It may not mean that you created it. It may not mean that you're to blame for it. Because some of us have been through some pretty horrific, horrendous trauma. You're not to blame for that. You're not even to blame for the effects of it. But you are responsible for how you're going to choose to interpret it and what you're going to do with it moving forward in your life. Are you going to use it as a catalyst to help wake you up to yourself and to your power and to your greatness and to your divinity? Or are you going to allow it to dumb you down and put you to sleep to the degree that now your body has to scream to get your attention? Yeah, Elliot says, I'm not to blame for it, but I have to own it. Wow, yes. No, we're not to blame for the things that happen to us. But there is a reason why we experience the things that we do. We are the creators of the lives that unfold to us because it's happening through us. Whatever we're projecting out onto the screen of the universe through our consciousness is a projection that then will give you feedback. Our bodies, our lives are like a biofeedback loop. So whatever you're projecting out there through the form of consciousness is going to come back to you in the form of conversations and relationships and situations and accidents and traumas and dramas and things that will happen to you because your soul is beckoning to learn X, Y, or Z. And so you will literally attract and create things in your life based on where your soul wants to grow. And that can be a hard realization sometimes. You are not to blame for your trauma, but you are responsible for what you're going to do with it. So taking responsibility also, I think, means being willing to know where you stand. You got to know where you stand. Who are you? Where are you going? What do you want out of life? You got to know that. No one can give you that. We talked about this earlier. You also have to know what you believe and why you believe it. I'm okay with your beliefs don't match my beliefs. I'm okay with that. If your beliefs are so far out of my box and my container of my conditioning, that's okay. But you sure as heck better know why you believe what you believe, rather than just going along to get along, just being obedient to the humans that are dictating to you how to obey them. That's not why we're here, to obey human beings. We're not here to do that. We're here to ascend. We're here to overcome. We're here to grow. We're here to discover who we are. We're here to discover our divinity. We're here to become as God is. And you can't do that if other people are dictating to you what's good, bad, right, or wrong, true, not true. You have to, the onus is on you to figure out what's true. That's on you. That's between you and God. No human has the right to insert themselves in between that process. Now, a lot of people will ask me, well, what about prophets then? Prophets lead us the way we're supposed to be going. I agree with that. I do agree with that. I believe there are prophets on the earth that do speak truth, but are they always in the on mode? Are they always speaking truth? Who knows? How are you going to know that unless you know how to tap in and discern truth? So the onus is on you to discern. If a prophet is speaking prophetically and they are speaking the words of truth, then they are speaking the words of God. You should follow that. You should. But don't just blindly obey people just because they call themselves a prophet. You shouldn't do that. Well, you can if you want to. I don't care. You can do whatever you want, but just know what you believe and know why you believe it. Anyone who uses coercion to get you to go in a certain direction is not a prophet. They are not honoring agency. True that. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. The other thing too, I think another aspect of this, taking ownership and taking responsibility for where you are in your life and what's true for you, and that's on you, right? Nobody can tell you what's true. You got to go figure it out for yourself. You have to learn how to discern. But at the same time, I often hear people saying things a lot. And you can tell where people are at in their spiritual journey based on how they relate to God. Because there's a lot of people that kind of going around in life saying, God told me this, God told me that, God told me to do this, God told me to do that. I'm being obedient to God because he told me to do this or he told me to do that. I used to be there. I used to do that. I used to pray for what's the next step? Tell me what to do. Just show me where I'm supposed to be and I'll just do that. And, just like the bicycle thing where the Lord said, Janet, you got to choose and you got to pedal and there has to be a determined place that you're going to go or you're going to go nowhere. So where are you going? And start pedaling. And then the Lord said, stop blaming everything on me. I'm not telling you everything to do. It's all on you, all of it. Every ounce of every decision you've ever made, it's on you. You've chosen to believe what you've chosen to believe, but that's on you because you chose to buy in. You chose to believe it. Do you even know that it's absolute truth? Do you know? And how do you know? That's a practiced, learned skill that you have to develop in learning how to discern what is true. What is true for you in this moment, right now? What's true for you in this moment right now might not be what's true for me in this moment right now. So you can't rely on other humans to tell you what's the next step in my life. What piece of truth do I need to adhere to and act on? That is on you solely, 100%. 100% of your free will and autonomy and agency is on you. Most people don't want to hear that because we've been conditioned to be victims. The world wants us to be a victim to our bodies and our circumstances and the world and the pandemic and all these things. The world wants you, at least the authoritarian voices in this world, they want you to be a victim. They want you to be in fear. They don't want you to be sovereign and autonomous. But it's your birthright. You don't have to be sovereign. You don't have to be accountable. You don't have to be responsible. You can just kind of go with what you're being told to do and follow the status quo and just do what you're told. You can do that if you want. What kind of a life is that, though? That's very sad. That's prison. That is prison. Hammy says, if we're making a not good choice for ourselves, do you think he'll show us? Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, God is your guide. God is your compass. God is always in alignment with your highest will. But often, most of you guys and me, most of the time in our lives, we don't know what our highest will even is. We don't. So we have to ask. We have to tune in. We have to check in. We have to know who we are. We have to know what the highest will is for us first. Then you can pray and ask God, okay, I need a little help here. This is where I'm going. This is what I believe is the highest will, but I'm willing to surrender to the highest will. So give me this or something better. Right? Okay. Yes, I do believe your higher self and God and the divine realm, angels, guides, the Lord, Christ, whoever you connect with in that divine dimension, they'll show you. They'll help you course correct. Most of the time, you're not on course. And so you're going to need that divine assistance in course correcting. For sure. It's like flying an airplane. 99% of the time when you're flying an airplane, you're not on course. You're veering off course. And so you've got to recalibrate to the fixed point. Like you fly from point to point to point, and you have landmarks that tell you, okay, this is where I'm going. I'm going to get to this point, and then I'm going to go to that point. And most of the time that you're flying in the air, you're in the air. So you're all over the place, and the airplane's going to go with the wind and vortexes. And like vectors. And so you have to constantly be recalibrating to that fixed point and going, oh yeah, this is where I'm going. I got to recalibrate, recalibrate, recalibrate. And that's how life is. You're not always going to get it perfectly right. You can't be perfect in your doing. It's not possible, because you're going to 90% of the time, you're going to be wrong, or you're going to be off course, or you're going to need guidance, or you're going to need to refocus. So I think a lot of people are afraid to step out into the world because they don't want to be deceived. They don't want to get it wrong. They don't want to get in trouble. They don't want to, they don't want to get in trouble. That's terrifying, to have the fingers pointing all at you and the whole world saying, look how bad and look how evil that person is. Nobody wants that. Yeah, we don't want to look bad. We always want to look good in our fellow men's eyes, and so we will give in to get along. But are we really fixed on the right points for our soul's journey and our soul's true path? You better know what that is. And there's only one way to find out. You got to know how to communicate with yourself and with God, and what that sounds like, feels like, looks like, smells like, tastes like. What does it feel like? You have to know those things, and it takes practice. But that was my takeaway, was the Lord said, stop blaming everything on me. The onus is on you. Free will and sovereignty is on you. If we're going to do these things then and stand in a confident place, knowing resolutely where we're going and who we are, you better be doing your inner work. You better be releasing things like trauma, fear, pride, jealousy, all the lower level emotions and the limiting beliefs and those things. You better be learning tools and skills for how to process and work your way through those things. And that takes a tremendous amount of humility. It does. It takes a lot of humility to go within and go, what demons are going on and what's happening inside of me? And what did I do to create that chaos that's in there? And how can I now move forward in resolving the inner chaos and restoring peace? What can I do about it? Okay, so eliminating fear, removing false limiting beliefs, humbling yourself, overcoming the hard stuff, stepping in to hard situations with fearlessness, being boldly fierce and courageous. That's what it's going to take. We're always going to be in a state of overcoming in our life. We're always going to be in a state of overcoming and improving and progressing. There is no end to improvement and progression. So, a lot of times it requires being willing to be seen, being willing to be wrong, being willing to take the risk of being deceived. Nobody wants that, but it's risky to be yourself. It's risky to follow the inner guidance of your soul and where God is guiding you. That's risky, but worth it. Who wants to be a prisoner their whole life and just go along to get along? Where's the growth in that? Oh, here's a good comment. Meryl says, in lectures on faith, number 6 is my favorite one. And I've read this many, many, many times. Joseph Smith said, we have to be willing to give up our reputation, our good name, and the respect of others as we stand for truth. Yeah, he actually said more than that. He said, your reputation, your home, your property, your wife, your children, your family, your friends, your good name, and the respect of others. That's terrifying. But if you can be willing to be fierce and bold, God will guide you. God will protect you. God will, just like, what's his name? Job. Just like Job, remember in Job's life, how everything was taken from him. Everything that mattered to him was taken from him. And I'm sure people pointed the finger and said, you're crazy, you're deceived, you did something wrong. He had a lot of shaming and shunning and shushing. Plan on it. If you really want to be bold enough to step out and take the risk and be you, there is not a more liberating, awesome, amazing feeling than to overcome what's not you and to stand up in sovereignty. Am I right? Share with us, anybody who wants to, a time in your life where you experienced having to stand the hell up and grow a backbone. And what was on the other side of that? And how has it served you moving forward in your confidence and in your life? We haven't done ingredient 5 or 6 yet. I'm still getting to those. We're still on number 4. But if you would be willing, if anybody wants to share, how has standing in your truth and your boldness, being fearless, stepping out on the ledge, stepping out into the water. Shauna says, there are so many I could share of times I stood up. How to pick one. Yeah. Yeah, me too. I'm seeing some of you on here that I work with personally in one-on-one mentoring, and I know you have stories to share too of how standing in a sovereign place has been a huge blessing to you. The fruits are good. Fruits are good. I need to also let you know, confidence, standing in confident sovereignty is not arrogance. They're totally different things. Arrogance is coming from a place of pride. Confidence is coming from a place of absolute pure love, because that's who you are. It's what you are. So there's a big difference. It doesn't have to always be about you, right? And establishing your boundaries so that nobody hurts you. So you can be confident, being arrogant. Yes, go ahead, Toby Lynn.
I remember a time, I must have been, I don't know, 21, and I was taking a parenting course, and the lady said, anyone who feels intimidated by their children, please stand up over on this side of the room. And I got up and I went and stood on that side. I felt intimidated. I had 4 children and I was like scared. And all the other questions she asked, and everybody went to the other side of the room, that they didn't feel that way. And I sat there and I thought, maybe I should change my mind. I thought, no, I'm going to stand right here. And it's almost like my feet got planted in cement and said, no, this is where I'm going to stand, because this is true. I'm not going to change just because everybody else said that. And one by one, as she asked the question of, when your child has a temper tantrum, do you feel intimidated? One by one, they came over to my side of the room. And ever since then, I knew I had to stand my truth. That even though they might not understand the question in the very moment, eventually, as we stand in truth, it gives people the confidence to come and stand in truth as they're seeing things from a different perspective. It wasn't a big thing that I went to. It was just a small little class. However, that really planted my feet to know that I had to stand for truth.
Ah, I love that story. Thank you, Toby Lynn. I love when you share. That's a great story. You want to talk about feeling intimidated by your children? Wait till they grow up and become adults and they're raising their own children, and now they're remembering all the things you did wrong as a parent. That's tough. But then you know what? The onus is on me to stand in my confidence and say, I did the best I could with what I had in the traumas that I was going through. Yeah, that was a great example. Thank you for sharing that. Cynthia says, I walked out of my job. Whoops, I just lost it. I walked out of my job that I had for 9.5 years. Wow, that's pretty bold. That's pretty fierce and fearless. Shauna says, I was bullied in the 7th grade, instigated by one girl. The bullying stopped in 8th grade, but I hated that girl. She was in my dance class in 12th grade. I was looking at her one day and decided to forgive her. It was a silent, triumphant moment. Yeah, the release, the letting go, the overcoming. Isn't that powerful? Juliet says, I'm beginning to stand in a sovereign place. March 1st, I left my home and husband for a year of patience. In a year's time, in a more serene space of mind and inner knowing, a decision will be made as to whether to proceed with divorce of 35 years of marriage. Ooh, I feel that. I feel that. That's bold. That is brave, because people are going to point at you and say, don't do that. Divorce is wrong, or don't do that. And they don't know. They don't know what your path holds for you, what the highest will is for you. You're the only one who can figure that out. So kudos to you for standing in your truth. And thank you, everybody, for sharing. So perfect. There's a couple more. I just feel like there's a couple more maybe aspects of ingredient number 4, which is owning. You're taking responsibility and ownership for what's going on in your world and inside of you. So I just feel like there's a couple more points that I wanted to make on that. And you're trying to think of a way to word this. Your moral compass does not come from humans. It does not come from man. It does not come from society. It does not come from religious rules, because there are rules in these cultures, right? Of these are the commandments. These are the rules. This is how we've interpreted these rules. This is what these rules mean. So therefore, we're going to project that onto you, and everybody has to conform. Well, you don't know what God is or isn't going to tell you, or where he's going to guide you to go. You don't know where your higher self is going. And sometimes it's not based on that system or those rules. For example, I was in a meeting with some very religious people, and they were saying to me, a very dear friend of mine walked away from a long-term marriage and children in that marriage. And religiously speaking, divorce isn't condoned in the culture, and families can be together forever. And that's the principle that's taught. And I'm not saying that principle is bad. It's not bad. Relationships are eternal. I know that, and I agree with that. But they said, God would never tell you to break up a family. God would never tell you to do that. That's wrong. They're sinning, and God would never tell you to sin. And my response to that statement was, how do you know? How do you know what God would or wouldn't tell you or somebody else? You don't know what God's highest will is for anybody else but you. So we can't go running around pointing fingers at other people saying, you're bad, you're wrong, you're deceived, you're evil, you're messed up, whatever it is, you're doing it wrong. Because you don't know what God is telling them or guiding them to do. So we have to be careful. And we have to also, if we're going to stand in a place of confident sovereignty, I think it's important that we not be seeking for validation from outside sources. Some of you, I don't know if any of you even know this, but I'm kind of going through a process in my church where my membership was put on hold for what they call apostasy. I wouldn't even call it apostasy. I would call it heresy. But so that's what happened. And in these meetings back and forth, this has been going on for 3.5, almost 4 years now. But in those meetings, I love these men. I have deep respect for them. I served alongside of them in leadership positions and have great respect for these men. But as they were kind of taking me through this process, how do I word it? One of the questions that they asked me was, Are you not concerned about your salvation? Aren't you worried about losing your privileges, your blessings, your salvation? And I was stumped by that question because I said to them, no, I'm not. Why would I? I'm not worried about those things at all. The church doesn't determine my salvation or my blessings or my covenants. That's not the church's role. That's not the church's job. That's between me and God. Those things are personal. They're intimate. They're my connection, my salvation, my covenants, those things that I've done to come close to God, close to deity. That's personal. That's a personal journey. That's between me and my maker, my creator. And so am I worried about those things if I lose my membership? No, not at all. And I don't mean any disrespect by it, but I don't worry about those things. I know where I stand. I know where I stand with Father, with Mother, the Divine Mother, with Christ, and all of the other divine angels and guides and beings that love me and serve me through the veil. I know where I stand with all of that. And it's not because I'm better than anybody. It's that I know where I'm going. I know what my intention is. And that leads me to this other aspect. That's going to go into the next recipe ingredient. So I'm going to save that, but that it does lead me into that next aspect, which is being made sure. We talk about this sometimes in religious philosophy of having your calling and your election made sure. Being made sure is, in my mind, standing firm and resolute and confident in your relationship with God. How God is to you, how you are to God, what that relationship looks like, where you stand. When you get to that kind of a place, you are made sure. So just know this too. As you step out in boldness and fierceness, and like what Toby Lynn said, standing in your truth, standing in that place that you know you're supposed to be. This is my truth. I'm not going to conform to where everyone else is going just because I'm scared of sticking out. She stood in her truth. It was a great example. You will be shamed. You will. Plan on it. Expect that to happen. It's okay if it does happen. Not everybody's going to agree with you. Not everybody's going to align with you. Not everybody's going to support you. And that's all right. That's fine. They don't have to. But just know that there is a high likelihood that you'll be shamed and shunned because you don't align with where they're at. But that's all right. You can still love people. You can still have respect for people. You can still respect people's boundaries. You can still respect where they're at on their journey because that's meaningful for them. We don't have to be bitter. We can still come from a place of love. And I loved what, who was it that said it? I think it was Shauna. Was it you, Shauna, that said, yes. Yeah, you forgave that girl. And in that moment, you had the triumphant moment. And so it's by letting go of these lower level emotions that will come up as people might not align with where we're at. And that's all right. Okay. Just to recap on that step number 4 is it's going to require a lot of humility and introspection. You're going to have to humble yourself and do your inner work. Go inside and go within and say, Lord, is it I? Is it I? Is there anything in me that I need to let go of? Is there anything in me that I need to be aware of? Is there anything in me that needs to change or shift or grow or elevate or overcome some fear? And be honest with yourself and look inside and keep doing that inner work. Ingredient number 5, we finally made it to number 5. Number 5 is measure the fruits. So I'll recap at the end, but measure the fruits. Always look back and go, okay, what are the fruits of, I feel like this is where my heart's leading me. I feel like this is where God wants me. I feel like this is what I'm supposed to be doing, but I'm still kind of unsure. I don't know if I have confidence in it yet, but I'm still kind of hiding behind the crowd, waiting to pop out at some point, and I don't want to be seen. You have to practice. It's going to require a lot of practice of being willing to be seen, being willing to be alone, being willing to take the risks. But the payout is undeniable. There is no greater feeling than to stand in the confidence of where you are with God. It reminds me of, I think it's in the Doctrine and Covenants. You could go look it up, just Google it. It's Doctrine and Covenants, I want to say 121, something like that, that says, let virtue garnish thy thoughts unceasingly, and then shall thy confidence wax strong in the presence of God. Do you want to have confidence in the presence of God? Or do you want to shrink and wither and go, oh my gosh, I'm in trouble, right? I don't think that's how God is anyways with us. Do you want to be made sure? Do you want to be made whole? Do you want to know with an absolute surety where you stand? Where you stand with God, where you stand with yourself, where you stand with other people, where you stand in the world. Do you want to know that? You should. That is sureness. That is the process of being made sure. Having your calling and election made sure is when God literally witnesses back to you, hey, good job. You're on the right track. You're following your true path. Good job. I'm going to seal it up for you. So we have to look at what the fruits are of that. And so sometimes it means stepping out into the darkness and then looking back and going, okay, how did that end up? What are the fruits? And you don't judge the fruits based on what happened to me. Did bad things happen? Those aren't fruits. The fruits of the Spirit, go look it up in Galatians 5, I believe, or 3. It's either 3 or 5. The fruits of the Spirit are love, joy, peace. And there's a whole litany, a whole list of them. Charity, humility, meekness, temperance, faith, an increase of faith, an increase of confidence. If you have an increase of confidence because of what you just came through and overcame, and you did it because you stood in your truth, look at how much more confident Toby Lynn is now that she stood in her truth and she owned it. That's what you got to do. You got to stand up in your truth, be willing to be seen, be willing to be alone, be willing to be heard, be willing to be not in alignment with everybody. That's all right. You're not for everybody. It's okay. Okay, we've got a couple of comments here coming through. Elliot says, planning for it felt like an immediate shift inside of me from fear to being ready or prepared. Yes, yes. Love it, love it, love it. You got to let go of that fear so you can be ready, you can be prepared. And then when you check in with the fruits and you go, oh, that was good. The effect of that was good. I'm in a better place. I feel more confident and sure and resolute. Those are the fruits you're checking for. Do you feel better? Are you filled with love? Michelle says, my mother is an example of this for me. She stood up to her whole family, including me, for a time when she decided to homeschool my siblings when homeschooling wasn't popular. I did that too. And yeah, a lot of people thought I was whacked out. When she stood up to me, too, as her daughter, I stepped back to really look at what she was doing, and I quickly became her cheerleader later. I love that. I also homeschooled my children for 25 years. I homeschooled mine too. Mike says, I'm not everyone's cup of tea because some people don't drink coffee. Yes, right. Right. That's a great analogy. And really, that's funny. 6. This is the last one, and I've kept you way longer than I ever intended to, and I apologize for that. But 6, the last step is repeat. Go through these processes over and over, practice them, get good at it. Let me recap. The recipe for standing in sovereign confidence is number 1, know who you are and know how to connect, and don't apologize for that, and don't negotiate those parts of yourself that are, be true to yourself. Number 2, choose. Go pick a direction that your heart's leading you and choose it. Choose. Speak it out to the universe, speak it out to God, speak it out to other people. Tell people where you're going. Make that choice. Pick a direction and go in it. Number 3, act. Respond with action, and you're going to have to follow it no matter what, even if it's scary. Even if you risk losing it all, like some of these people have talked about, losing everything, but they have to, because they're being true to their inner heart's GPS. You got to be true to that. You owe that to yourself. And you owe that to the world. Nobody wants a world that's just filled with a bunch of fake people that are going along to give along, or to get along, sorry. Shame. Shame on you if you're just going along to get along. Stand up, be bold, be fierce, be brave. It's going to take some bravery. Sometimes in our lives, it feels comforting and safe to just be obedient, to go along to get along. I get that. I've done that. We've all done it. But are there places in your life where you can be a little more bold, where you can begin this process? None of us are perfect at this. None of us, not one of us is. But we can start, right? Number 4 is take ownership, take full responsibility. It's all on you. Agency, it's all on you. Number 5 is measure the fruits, calculate what are the fruits. Are they good fruits? Are they bad fruits? Are they negative fruits? Number 6, rinse and repeat. Hopefully you guys got some value from today's class. If you did, please share the replay. The replay will be up in my Greater Life, Greater Impact YouTube channel later this afternoon. As soon as you get the replay, feel free to share this with others if you feel like it might serve them or benefit them in some way. And hopefully we'll see you guys next Tuesday. Shauna says, Janet, this was a great meeting today. Thank you. And thanks for your participation, you guys. I really appreciate it. I appreciate all the comments, all the remarks. Anybody else have one final thing? There's time for one final little takeaway if you want to share. All right. Well, oh, we got 2 more. Hold on. My first participation. Well, thanks. Welcome. Welcome. I hope you come back. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a blessed rest of your day, and we'll talk to you next week. See you. Bye.